I've taught outside of the IB program, but being in the IB program right now, they're very motivated, educated, ready to go kids, and 99% of them have no idea what the word theory means. And that one really throws me, and I think as long as we use words that kids don't truly understand, or they think a theory is a hunch, I think there's going to be a lot of misconceptions about evolution out there. And so for me, I think it starts with language, and understanding the difference between words and context, and understanding the word evolution, and understanding the word theory. Theories don't graduate to become laws. Things like that kids just don't get. For me, that's a huge thing. And the more I've explored epistemology with my students in terms of understanding how science is different yet similar to history, and different yet similar to religion, I think kids start to understand that they're very different methodologies and practices. And I think often kids don't really know that. So I think that's a place to start.
Yeah. The only thing that I would add to this is that when the times that I do talk to teachers about when you should start trying to teach the scientific method, I'm always amazed that any age I suggest, they give me a younger age at which we should start, and that kids are naturally curious at a very young age, yet somehow we seem to beat that out of them by the time they get to you at ninth grade yet. And so that's the, and so they're, you know, in a sense, starting teaching the scientific method in the university is almost too late in the sense of, and so everything that I've heard is it's got to be started earlier and earlier and earlier. That's
I think that it's great and a very important thing to be able to train teachers how to teach better. But what happens, or what are your thoughts on if a teacher doesn't want to teach evolution? What's the course of action from there?
There really is no course of action unless it comes directly from their supervisor. Really.
What do you do to a teacher who doesn't want to teach long division?
It's really when if the parents are complain, and parents get involved, is when there's a lot of, the community has a lot of impact on what teachers do. As if teachers feel safe and comfortable and understand their administration and understand their student body, they feel comfortable teaching. When parents have complaints, then usually administrators will sit down and tell me, and this is, all teachers have experienced this, where administrators and the one particular parent will sit down with the teacher to try to understand what the issue is. So usually teachers operate within that context.
Yeah, I would agree that it's reactive instead of proactive. Yeah, for sure.
I had an experience at my school where the science teacher across from me was not a believer in education, and he would often try to argue with me about that. But I was concerned about that, and Chris, you're right. In classrooms, teachers can do pretty much whatever they want unless somebody makes a stink about it. And then, so I went to the principal, and I was just kind of like, what do you do about this guy? I don't really know if this is the right thing to do. And the principal and none of my administration had really any idea about science, and it didn't seem like they knew what the science standards were for the state of Colorado, so nothing was really to be done. Some of the parents would often either want their kids transferred out of his class, or they loved him because it was kind of a conservative area. So I wonder what's to be done, not just with teachers in this respect, but with administrators that don't quite understand the science part of it and the evolution part of it.
Again, it just comes back to the community, and maybe you can speak to this. I think all this begs the question, how do you change the community then to get more evolution in our classroom? I mean, have you dealt with this often?
The United States does have a very decentralized education system. And, we all know the old saw, you get the government you deserve. You get the school board you deserve. I don't think there's a single school board in the United States that's elected by a majority of the voters in the community. School boards are always elected by minorities because nobody bothers voting for school boards. They're always the election, those are always the positions way down on the ballot, right? And so only a small proportion of the people in the community bother voting for school board members. And I know it's a lot of work, but if you want to have good schools, you have to have a school board that's willing to actually supervise what's going on in the community, which means you have to have community members who elect school board members who are going to pay attention to such things. Now, if you've got administrators who are letting people teach who are ignoring the standards, who are ignoring the curriculum, that is not a well-run district, you know? There are two problems, one a bigger problem than the other. One problem being colleagues who actually are bringing creationism into the classroom. That's a really bad thing. If you are a teacher and you notice that somebody down the hall is actually doing this, the best thing you can do for your community is to blow the whistle on that person, because that person is really jeopardizing the district, because some parent is going to sue your district at some point, and that's going to cost your district a lot of money, and that money can be much better spent on the kids. So if you have somebody in your district who is bringing bad stuff into the classroom, the best thing you can do for your district is to tell your principal, tell your supervisor, nice old Joe down the classroom really shouldn't be bringing these tracts into the school. Tell him to knock it off because we don't want to be sued and lose all that money. That's the first thing. That's a no-brainer. The second thing is the sort of thing you were talking about, where you've got a colleague that just is not teaching evolution, and that's a different kind of incompetence because those students are not getting the kind of education they should get. That's shortchanging the students. And that's bad, because we want the students to get a good education. We don't want the students to get an inferior education. That's the chairman of the science department or the principal should really call that person in and say, gee Margaret or gee Sam, you really ought to be teaching the curriculum. Is there something we can do to help you? Maybe that person needs mentoring, maybe that person needs something to bring them up to snuff. If the principal is not capable of doing that, maybe the science supervisor in the community needs to do some mentoring of the principal. If the science supervisor is clueless, maybe the chair of the Board of Education needs to do something. But maybe if the chair of the Board of Education is too clueless, maybe you need a new chair, maybe you need a new Board of Education, maybe the citizens need to do something. So this is why I say we get the school board we deserve. Not that any of this is easy. It's very easy for me to be a cheerleader for citizen activism, and I know this is not an easy thing to do. Public engagement is difficult, and I'm not trying to minimize it. These are complicated issues, and I know they are hard. But it does begin with individual teachers paying attention, and I do applaud you for having spoken out when you noticed that the kids were getting shortchanged, and I do hope that other teachers will continue to do this, because that is the absolutely vital first step. And of course, I also appreciate your comment about how college-level professors are not modeling the kind of teaching that we want the next generation of teachers to be doing themselves either.
Well, and to add to what Dr. Scott's saying, in terms of teachers who don't teach evolution, some of the research is showing that either they're not teaching because they don't understand evolution themselves, or because they're not feeling that they're concerned about their ability to teach it. And to me, those still bring the issue comes back to the education that they're getting at the college level when they're being educated as teachers. So they should feel comfortable. So this is not a responsibility just of folks in teacher education programs and schools of education.